This video is going to be on just kind of the basics of how to use Transaction Desk and Authentisign. So we're going to practice just having a potential client to sign documents. So what we're going to do today is just when you get on Back Agent, to go to Office, Documents. We're going to go to Buyer Seller Docs, Seller Forms, Individual Disclosures. So now with both the buyer and the seller, there are certain disclosures that are required. So you see here the R has these required documents. So what we're going to do is just practice having a client sign that. So what you need to do for the first time around is save these documents in your Dropbox. So if you click on one, it'll pop up, and you're just going to want to download it, save it to your Dropbox, because you're going to pull these forms a lot. So having a folder that says seller docs or buyer docs is going to be really important for you. So do that first, and then once you have those saved, we're going to open a new tab and go to Transaction Desk. So during Transaction Desk, you'll see this when you're writing an offer. There are times where using forms is really helpful. There are times when you go from the MLS and enter in a listing, and then it will direct you to Transaction Desk. If you are just needing signatures, the easiest thing is to go here to Transaction Desk and then click the pen and add new. So disclosures. We're going to get there. So you can make the signing name whoever it is. You're just going to want to make sure that it's something that you can recognize. If you're just doing a signing, I typically don't put it to a transaction, but if you want to organize your forms differently, then play around with Transaction Desk, see what's going to be the easiest for you. So when you are just starting out at Transaction Desk, it's going to have the name so that you can keep it clear of which papers that you're getting signed and that you grab when you download it. First come, first serve is what you typically want to have, just because depending on if it's a husband and wife, whoever gets there first is fine. I typically don't set any of these, but you can look through and see if that's anything that you would like to look at. Participants, when you continue to have clients, you'll have them saved in your contacts. So for today, we're going to add a new participant. Let's say it's Lauren Stoll, which is my maiden name. I'm going to use my Gmail account here, and I'm going to enter as a buyer, let's say. So you're just going to ask your client for their full legal name. So then, technically mine is Christina L. Stoll. Well, Ludford now. But just so that I don't get me confused in my own system, I'm going to use that as my maiden name there. And then your email, and then you want to save that contact. So ask them their full new legal name, the email they want to use. You want to save them for later. And if you had a spouse, then you would add them there. So I'm going to add. And then documents. So here, if you are using a form from GLAR, sometimes you'll look at the forms, play around with this and see some of the transactions. If you have a folder of transactions, you may pull it from there. But for today, we're going to use Dropbox, because that's where you would have just saved those disclosures. And again, since these are covenant disclosures, it's not going to be on the GLAR information, and you'll become more familiar with that. So I'm going to go into seller's initial paperwork, which is just where I have mine, and we're just going to grab consumer guide, affiliated business, and anti-fraud. We're just going to practice with these three. So I'm going to choose. So I've got these three here. You can move around the order. So something that is just a good time to look at, some of these forms, it is important to be in a certain order. Now these we're just practicing here, but when you go to submit a transaction, there's a list of how Desiree likes or needs those forms in which order. So when you go to the listing paperwork, the full package of listing paperwork or the full package of buyer's paperwork, they are in the right order, but just make sure that you're paying attention to that because it's easier to do it at this point than later on, depending on what software you use. So once you have your forms how you want them, we're going to go to Design, and I'm just going to show you some tips and tricks here. So if you had multiple signers and you drop this down, it would be multiple people's names here. Most of the time you're going to have, 2 buyers or sellers. So looking at this consumer guide to agency relationship, this is the time where you would have already gone through this with your buyer. So really and truly at this point, most of the time you just need them to sign it. Hopefully you would have explained it, but you can always call them and they can talk through it with you. So right here we need the signer's name printed, signed, and date. So I'm going to click on the person that I want. So I'm going to have Christina Stull and then drag and drop. So I want to drag her name, Christina Stull, there. I want her to sign here, date, and then this is just a funny thing about the software. There's not a time button up here, so what you have to do is you have to click on the signature page, click this gear, and add a timestamp, because when they sign, it will automatically do the date and time. And then here, document provided by, so we need to add some text. So the drag and drop is always the information from the person that's signing. Markup is what we want to use for this. So we're going to take a text box, document provided by Lauren Ledford, Covenant Realty, LLC. So on this particular form, you're always going to want to write your name as the agent and then Covenant's name here. And then again, if I had 2 signers, I would put that. So that's what you need on the consumer guide. Again, you would have explained this. Affiliated business arrangement. So the client, so I'm just going to take the client's name, drag, and then for the agent, I'm going to go to markup, grab a text box, I'm going to move that to where I want it because I like it to be even. Okay. And then here at the bottom, you need your participant to sign. So we're going back to the drag and drop. Sign here, date here. The more you do this, the more familiar you'll become with it. Some of the forms you need a lot of signatures. Some just need a few. Anti-fraud, I just need the signature and the date. So now once you send this to your client to be signed, you can't go back and edit it. So really at this stage, you want to go ahead and option save changes. You want to save changes as you're going because you don't want to lose any of your work. Now if you needed to add a document, you can go back, save and continue. Or let's say at this point I found out that I needed to add another person to sign. You can go and add documents, add a new participant, whatever you need. But we're going to go back to design for now. So just make sure that you always save your work because Transaction Desk does some funky things sometimes. So I just always recommend looking back through this, making sure that you've filled in everything that you want. And then if you feel good about it, press next, send invitations. So it is going to email them. So at this point, you may want to wait a couple minutes and then text your client and say, hey, I've emailed you some information to sign. If you have any questions or issues, give me a call. And so you can see here, it will email you directly when they've signed, but I see here that they haven't signed or done anything. So I'm going to show you what it looks like from your your client's viewpoint also, just so that you can help talk them through it. If you ever need to sign something, you can always send these to yourself. Let's see here. See if I can get into my other account. You can send this, again, when you need Travis Atkinson to sign something, the easiest thing for him to do as our broker is to have that also. Okay, so I see here Lauren Ledford sent me an email, and this is what it looks like through Authentisign. You're going to tell your clients to click on the blue pin, and it'll bring up the documents, and all they have to do is click through to sign. This is, again, when you're writing an offer, especially, you want to make sure that they are understanding what they're signing. I mean, this is their signature. This means that you don't have to take them the hard copies to sign. This is valid, but just as a reminder, you will give them all that at closing. So I'm going to say I'm just going to accept the font style that they have, and then I'm going to press start, and all I do is click, and it's done. So I can stay and review the document. I can complete the signing. Right now I don't want to add a password, and that's it. So as the participant, that's what you see. And then from my point of view as the agent, oh, it logged me out. So I'm going to get back in so that you can see the agent's point of view. Also, you never want to send another agent one of these types of Authentisigns. If you all haven't talked about it, not like when you're signing the contract or something like that. Typically, you just want to send this to your people to sign, and then you'll receive a final document and then email that over to the other agent. We'll go through that more when you're doing a contract, but just a side note there, typically you just do this with your client. So it says all of these flags, all is good. I also received emails, so you can see here that I'm receiving emails, and then I got the final successful that everyone had signed. So if there's 3 people signing, 2 people signing, you'll get that. And then I can view the final document and save it. So that is the very basic way to use Authentisign using some of our covenant documents. And then we'll go through when you're writing an offer on how you can use some blur documents.